So I was watching this video of this kid who was trying to train his dog, and what happened is that the dog ends up just like biting him in the face and pushing him to the ground, and then his mom just like nonchalantly just tells like one of the other kids to take the baby away, and it's kind of reported that after this video was posted online that she got lost custody of her children. And I would say, good, because there's a lot of people who have dogs like pit bulls, and they're not like either well trained, or sometimes they may have like they may have aggression issues, or they're just some people who just give their dogs way too many chances, and then something really really bad happens. And I also feel that sometimes, what happens to a lot of people is that they may have a dog that might bite or pounce or attack their children, and they're kind of like nonchalant about that because they're like, oh well, it's the family dog, we love the dog, we don't want to put it down or whatever, we want to give it a bunch of chances, really. So sometimes, social services has to step in and be like, hey, you know what, your kid just got attacked, and there's like an underreaction, really. Or, oh well, you have small children and you choose to have an aggressive dog, or somebody saying, get the baby away, get the baby away. So the dog's aggressive, so why are you having an aggressive dog that attacks one of your kids, and then you have like a baby with you? We need to kind of take the kids away to make sure nobody gets hurt. So I understand all that. And I think that's kind of appropriate because there's a lot of times where, and I'll talk about a little bit, that I was almost attacked by a pit bull a few months ago, because what happened was the pit bull was in somebody's house. They charged the front door and they were chasing me, and it was like fight or flight, really. I remember trying to get into somebody's pickup truck, and then the owner just like tackled his dog and dragged him by the collar back into the home, really. And that's an example of bad owners, because obviously, what's the dog going to learn? The dog's going to learn, okay, you know what, maybe this person was, maybe I was walking by the house, that's my territory, or I do whatever the hell I want to because I'm an aggressive dog. And what the owner going to do? The owner's going to yell at the dog, bring him back inside, and then more than likely this is going to happen again to somebody else, really. So there's no sense of, okay, maybe the dog needs to be put down, or maybe the dog needs some serious training, because that's not enough consequence. Like I remember like when I had a dog, unfortunately, this dog dealt with a bunch of animal abuse. But I remember like what happened was like the dog would had an issue. I had a dog that had issue with peeing and shitting in the house, and I remember like my dad would always say, you gotta walk the dog, you gotta walk the dog, you gotta walk the dog every single time that happened. But I remember like one time one of my relatives lost their temper and they just choked the dog. They were slamming and throwing the dog around, and doing that thing too where a lot of people do with dogs. They'll grab them by the collar and put them close to like the shit the shit and the piss and other things like that. But I remember like, one time one of my relatives got mad with the dog. It was an English Springer Spaniel, and they were like, giving him like a country beating, really, like a full scale ass whooping. And then that dog had a couple months where he didn't go to the bathroom in the house. Got learned there are consequences when you do that. Oh well, you don't get like a mile long walk after you do that. Animal abuse is a horrible thing. Animal abuse is not the way to raise an animal. Like if you have a child that's like 3 or 4 years old and they have issues with peeing, or they may think it's funny to pee and poop in the wrong place, and you wouldn't beat them the same way, really. Most people won't. It should never happen as well, but that's comparable. If you have an issue with a dog with behavioral issues or bathroom issues, beating and abusing dogs is not the right way. But there is this thing in this culture of giving animals way too many passes, and sometimes the police have to remove children, no problem, really. I remember my parents had a dog named Zach. It was like a small dog, maybe like the size of like a schnauzer. But I remember like my dad would say things too, that when the dog got old, it had issues with being irritable. So what would happen was that when me and my brother were first adopted, I was 4, my brother was 6. We would be jumping on the couch, afraid of the dog, like because the dog would be jumping and barking, trying to nip at us. And my parents gave the dog way too many chances, way too many chances, way too many chances. And then eventually my parents said, okay, that's enough. We got to put the dog down, really, because it's old and crazy. But the fact that you have small children and your dog is like being aggressive to them, or the dog's trying to scare them, and you're as a parent like, oh well, I love the dog so much that I'm not going to put it down, or I'm so confident that I can train the dog, when they're just being wild and reckless. That's something. And I remember like we also had a dog named Randy. That was a Doberman. I remember like how the dog nipped my grandmother It was aggressive. It would run away. It would do whatever the hell it wants, really. And the dog actually bit me, but I was teasing, taunting the dog. I was like in second grade, so obviously there's personal accountability. But I remember how after the dog bit me, that's when we got rid of the dog. And I also remember like after I got stitches, whatever. My dad totally blamed me. And I remember my brother saying, I wish you were euthanized instead of the dog, Byron. But I also remember that was the same thing. Like the dog that we got had issues with aggression, with nipping people. But my dad just being, arrogant and having narcissism issues, like, oh, well, we're gonna keep the dog, we're gonna keep the dog, we're gonna keep the dog, no matter what, really. Or I know what I'm doing, really. And then sometimes you don't know what you're doing because once you have a dog that thinks it's okay to bite people and attack people, and they've had patterns of aggression, and you do nothing about it, then social services has to be like, hey, you know what, we got to look into this. Maybe you're just an idiot that thinks that, okay, you know what, aggressive dogs, that has aggressive dogs, and whatever, really, So, definitely, we're responsible for having a family, and then what type of animals we bring into the home, really, and definitely if animals end up attacking our children, it's okay for social services to look into that and be like, hey, you know what? We saw this video and your dog was very aggressive. And it seems like the video you just said, oh, well, just remove the kid. I might just remove like the baby. Oh, well, we're not pinning the dog down. Oh, well, the dog's not put to sleep. Oh, well, the dog's going to continue to live in the household when it knows that attacking children's okay. It's good that the child was removed and the parent needs training as long as the dog, really, because dogs can't be running around doing whatever the hell they want.